This is Q&A, guys. Ball's in your court. Question?
How does one find meaning in doing mitzvahs that they've been doing? Let's say they've been brought up religious and they've been doing all their life. So at age 3 they put a cap on sitters on. At age 13 they were given tefillin. How does one find a deeper meaning and understanding and a love for doing mitzvahs they've done all their life?
Well, it's a good question, and I can give you a couple of answers, but I think you should ask other people as well. First of all, there's a gigantic literature on the mitzvahs, which explains what their meaning is and what their purpose is and what the effects are that they have. And for example, Sefer HaChinuch goes through all 613 commandments and gives reasons for them. The Rambam, in the last sixth of the guide, goes through many of the mitzvahs and gives reasons for them. The reasons come in different dimensions. Some are social, some are political, some are psychological, some are spiritual, some are Kabbalistic. The more you learn about the mitzvah, the more you should be able to identify with it, because there'll be more of you invested in it. In particular, mind will be invested in it, and your emotions will be invested in it. And the other thing is to be in the company of people who do mitzvahs in a special way. I had the privilege of being close to my Rabbi Zatzal for 47 years, and the love and devotion with which he did a mitzvah was awesome. I can still see that the mitzvahs that he did. I have it in front of my eyes when I try to do mitzvahs myself. So that definitely is a help. And if not that, then you get it by reading biographies of great people. One just general idea, we say Asher Kiddushanu b'Bitzoso v'Tzivanu. As Baruch Hu sanctified us with the commandments and commanded us. So the idea that he gave us Kedusha, sanctity, through the commandments is double. First of all, when you do a mitzvah, you connect to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, you are embodying his ratzon, his will. You're doing his will in the world. You function as his shliach in the world, actually, the Pri Tzaddik says. So, we have the Gemara says, Shluchei mitzvah eino nizokin. A person's a shliach to do a mitzvah is exempt from certain types of dangers. Shluchei mitzvah doesn't mean I sent you to do a mitzvah for me. Anyone who's going to do any mitzvah is a Kodesh Baruch Hu shliach to do that mitzvah. And that's why you're exempt from dangers, because shlucha shalom kamoso, keviyachol. The shliach takes on some aspects of the identity of the one who's the mishalech, who he's representing. Wow, so you're doing a mitzvah, you're bringing into the world the Kodesh Baruch Hu's ratzon, and you're functioning as a shliach. Any mitzvah has that enormous character. In fact, the Gemara Ksuba says that human actions are greater than those of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, because Kodesh Baruch Hu created the heavens and the earth, each with one hand. Heavens with the right hand, the earth with the left hand. Whereas the Mishkan, it says, Mikdash Hashem Konan Yadecha, that the Mishkan was created with two hands. And if you take as an axiom the two-handed actions are greater than one-handed actions, we built the Mishkan. So our building the Mishkan is a two-handed action. Because Baruch Hu's creating heavens and earth were one-handed actions. It comes out that our actions are greater than those of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's what the Gemara says. Says the Pri Tzaddik, you probably thought yourself already of the whole in the argument that I just presented, because the verse that describes the construction of the Mishkan as a two-handed action is Mikdash Hashem Kodanu Yodecha. Your hands have created. True, we did make it, but the verse that describes it as a two-handed action identifies it with Kadosh Baruch Hu's two hands. So how does it get to be a description of a human action as two-handed? Answer is Pri Tzadik, because we function as a Kadosh Baruch Hu shliach. So yes, the action is associated with him, but only because we did it. And now the Gemara has to be read as follows. We're comparing two types of divine actions. Divine actions that Kadosh Baruch Hu does on his own versus divine actions that he does through human agency, human shlichus. Which of the two divine actions is greater? The divine action he does on his own, Shemayim va'aretz, each one-handed, versus the action he does through human agency, the Mishkan, which we built and qualified HaKadosh Baruch Hu's action as a two-handed divine action. The greater divine action is the one he does through human shlichus. And now, draw the conclusion. Look how great our contribution is that we confer upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu a level of action which, carefully now, which he does not exercise on his own. Not that he can't, he can do anything he wants. But he chooses not to. He chooses to have the two-handed divine actions done through human agency. So that means when you're doing a mitzvah, you're an agent for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're doing that in the world. But these are ideas which, depending upon your cast of mind, you can use to, and the literature is endless. With Rambans and Rav Hirsch, the literature is really endless. Chazal, not all of Chazal. I'll just tell you one story about my Rebbe Zatzal. At the end of Sukkot, the last thing he did in the Sukkah before he went inside for Shmini Atzeres was he took the lulav and Esrog once more, not without a bracha, of course, and then he put them down. He kissed them when he put them down, like kissing a great friend goodbye. And then he kissed the walls of the sukkah. At sukkah, he climbed up on a ladder. He kissed the schach. If you had seen that, you'd appreciate sukkah in a way that you don't appreciate sukkah. I was by him how many times for Friday night? 200, 250. Every Kiddush Friday night was the last Kiddush. Nothing morbid, but this Kiddush will never come back. This Kiddush will never come back. The one time in all of human history that this Kiddush can be made. That's how you felt when you made Kiddush. It's the preciousness of the opportunity to do the mitzvah. So if you have the opportunity to experience mitzvahs in the company of people like that, that will also give you a sense of depth for mitzvahs. Yeah, let's know.
When someone wants to be with someone that doesn't know nothing about Judaism, what's the first thing to speak about?
You're communicating with someone who knows nothing about divinity, you said?
No, about Yiddishkeit.
Oh, Yiddishkeit. What's the first thing you should talk about? There's no single answer to that question. People are very, very different. What will interest one person will not interest another person. And it will vary with your interest as a speaker. It's usually best to speak about things that you know best, you understand best, and that you feel deeply. And people ask me, what secular subject should I learn in order to be able to impress people on that? First of all, there are people who have a tremendous career in Kiruv that don't know anything, any secular knowledge. But if you feel that it will be helpful, and it can be helpful, take a secular subject that you are interested in and you have some ability in, and learn it well. And it makes a difference whether it's Chinese history or whether it's chemistry. It's enough to indicate to the listener that you're an intelligent person, you've learned something that he has heard of, and you come to a high level of understanding of it. It's a bridge between you and him, that you are not totally other. You're only 92% other, but you're not totally other, and that bridge can be very important. My technique is to look for some way to make the ideas important to him. To find something in his life which is going on that this could be relevant to. People become interested and start asking questions for various different types of reasons. There are people who go through traumas of one kind or another, the death of a parent, illness, a house burns down, they lose a deep, close friendship, and they're disoriented, and their sense of confidence that their lives are on track and things are going well, the sense of security is shaken, and then they're looking for perhaps more depth and understanding what the world is and how it runs. It's one type. There's another type of person, many of whom ended up here, who were quite successful in what they were doing. They had achieved the goals which their society believes are important goals, and they didn't feel fulfilled by it. They didn't feel that it was very significant. They felt that they're missing out on something. There must be some other dimension to life that they're missing out on. So they're looking for, again, a richer picture of how the world works. So if someone's coming in trouble and someone's coming out of success, we have both kinds of people. They're both relevant ways to come. Some come because a cousin became frum, and they're going to do battle to prove that it's wrong. You have those kinds as well. So now you have to know where the person's coming from and what the person can hear. This is a crucial thing because many people, for one reason or another, want to explore, but their ability to hear something is very limited. And if you say the wrong thing at the outset, which they can't hear, you may just discourage them and turn them off entirely. And if somebody says, I'd like to know something about the way, about the way the world works, what makes things work, happen, how they go, and how they build, and so on and so on. And you say to the person, okay, one of the things we're going to teach you is you have cause and effect, right? Sometimes, I'm glad you're sitting down, sometimes the effect comes first and the cause comes later. That's what we're going to teach you. Say that again. The effect comes first and the cause comes afterwards. Gee, isn't the cause the thing that makes the effect happen? How could the effect happen first? It's just like, off the page. How could that possibly be? How could it be? Okay, well, Feynman had it, and John Wheeler had it, and it's a well-known thing in certain types of particle physics. But if you start with that, the guy's going to say, this course is not for me. Forget it. I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking nonsense. Or talking about mathematics. You say, one of the things I'm going to teach you in this mathematics course is that there are different sizes of infinities, some bigger infinities and some smaller infinities. The guy says, man, he's nuts. What is he talking about? Different sizes of infinities? Bigger and smaller infinities? Infinity has no size. That's infinity has no size, Can't be different sizes of no size. That's ridiculous. Well, there is a field called transfinite mathematics. I used to teach it for a living. But if you say that at the outset, you may just walk out and say, it's another year for me. These guys are talking nonsense. So you got to be careful with what you say to match it up with the educational capabilities of the person you're talking to. I have found, for certain people, especially South Africans who know something, if you take them through the Maisa Egel and show them that it was not Avodah Zarah, one guy became frum because of that explanation of Maisa Egel. Because he knew that story, everybody knows the story of the golden calf and so forth and so on, and the movies and everything else, and turned out to be utterly different from what he had been told. I proved it to him from the Psukim. So he said, wow, there's a lot here that I'm making mistakes about. What I was taught in my school and what I read in the books is just not true. Well, what else don't I know about? What else isn't true? What else should I look at? That was the way he got interested. So it's going to be very various. There's no one answer to the question. Yeah.
Does God test us the most when it's time to go to the next chapter in our lives?
Sorry, say the words again.
I said, does God test us the most when it's time to go to the next chapter in our lives?
Test us the most when we're trying to get to the next chapter? I have no clues to the general rules by which Kodesh Baruch Hu decides, but I doubt it. It sounds too restrictive. Tests have any number of different purposes. even even possibly, well, okay, let me back up and clarify some words now. First of all, when we talk about God testing us, don't misread test as, gee, I wonder what Sam will do. I'll try this and see what happens. That's obviously not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what he will do. Then the word test implies there's such a thing as passing and failing. And if it's a serious test, it ought to be possible to pass and possible to fail. In fact, you hear people say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will only test you for something that you can do. It's impossible. He wouldn't just cause you to fail. You can pass every test. Okay, that might be correct. But now, the fact that I could pass every test doesn't mean that I could overcome every obstacle. How could that be? Because not every obstacle is a test. Some obstacles are put there to make me trip and fall. That's not a test. I couldn't have overcome it. But sometimes the Kodesh Baruch Hu wants me to trip and fall. I won't be held responsible. I won't be punished for failing to overcome the obstacle, but I need to fall. For example, to correct a kaiva. And this happens with children. When you'll be a parent, you see a child who's so full of himself and so confident that he's the best thing to do for him when he's 9 years old is to cause him to fall, to be overcome by something, so that he learns, number one, what it is like not to get what you want and not to overcome the obstacle that's in your way. He learns to be more sympathetic to others who also are having difficulty in overcoming their obstacles, and to overcome pride. The Tzaddik, in the Tzidkas HaTzaddik, talks about what we call Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah. That's a phrase that you've heard in Chazal, a descent for the sake of an ascent. You know, when you're going to climb a mountain, usually there are foothills until you get to the main mountain. And the way you climb, the path that you take is a path. You go up the foothill, then you go down to a shallow valley, then you go up the next foothill, then you go down to a shallow valley. So the descent into the valley so you can get to the next foothill to climb up. That's the Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah. The Tzidkas HaTzaddik says you can have a person for whom in his ruchnius everything's going well. He's doing more mitzvot and he has better kavanah and he's more yiras Hashem and the better relationship with his parents. Everything's going well. And then there's a sudden fall. And you can't imagine, why did that happen? I'm working hard and everything's going well. Why should I fall like that? Tzidkas HaTzaddik says, because one of the ingredients in an Oved Hashem is the desire to become an Oved Hashem. And this guy thinks he already is an Oved Hashem. So he has no desire to become an Oved Hashem. And that's bad. So he's got to be pushed down so that he reminds himself that I haven't yet achieved being an Oved Hashem. That reawakens his desire to become an Oved Hashem, which is a necessary ingredient for his ruchnius. That's the Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah. So there are many, many reasons why HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts obstacles in our path. Some are tests and some are not tests. And it's the point of managing a person's ruchniistic development. That's, gigantic. And there are many, many different dimensions. And a rule as simple as going to the next chapter, I think, is not going to do it. Yeah, what's noch?
You mentioned before that if you want to go to the next level, sometimes there's gathers of the flippers. Maybe have this as a functioning rule.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting the words.
I've seen in the Svarim this idea that a person wants to enter the next level of Kedusha. Yeah. And this is gathers. It becomes harder for the person, for example. There's new nisyonos, new tests. Is that a thing?
Yes, certainly. I mean, the Gemara says, Kol Godol Mechavero, Yisur Yoser Gottleib Mimenu. The bigger a person is in Ruchnius, his Yetzer Hara, his evil inclination, gets bigger. No, so now Rav Chaim Shmulevitz asked the following question. You say, when the person gets bigger, his evil inclination gets bigger also. Is it proportional? Let's say he gets twice as big. Does it mean his Yetzer Hara is twice as big? Or could it be that when he gets twice as big, the Yetzer Hara be 4 times as big? Could that happen? Now, I don't know if you've read Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, but when he asks a question or he analyzes something, it's based on Gemaras, and it's nailed down. It's nailed down. And it's nailed down with pshat. He never bends anything to make his point. And here it's an explicit Gemara. Gemara tells a story that Abaye saw a man and a woman who weren't married set off together on a journey. And they were going on through paths of the forests, and he decided to follow them to see what would happen. And they went for hours, and it was perfectly innocent. And then they came to a party in the ways, and he went one way and she went the other way. And Abai said, if I had been him under those conditions, I would have failed. Now, says Mefchaim Shulevitz, well, why is that exactly? Abai certainly is much greater in Ruchnius than that guy is. Now you'll tell me, okay, it's greater in Ruchnius, but it's a greater Yetzer Hara. But that guy succeeded. He succeeded. So if Abai is 10 times greater than he in his Ruchnius, as Yetzer Hara is 10 times greater, he'll succeed, not fail, because he has the same nisayon, and that guy succeeded. So no, if Abai said that he could fail, it means that if he's 10 times as great, his Yetzer Hara could be 12 times as great, and he might fail. So it definitely can happen. Now, you have to put that together with the fact that of Dessler, when he talks about Bechira, it's normal in life to outgrow certain nisyonos. A lot of kids, maybe 50% of kids, steal. It's very common. When he's 8, 10, 13, maybe 15. By the time he's 19, typically he doesn't steal anymore because it doesn't interest him anymore. He's outgrown it. He struggled with it. He knows it's wrong, and he's overcome it. And he doesn't have it. It doesn't have a Yetzer Hara for stealing anymore. So it doesn't have to come back in the same bechina. Indeed, as I'll say, that two committed averos that they weren't roy for, and it was because Baruch Hu wanted to teach tshuva. Klai with the Egels one, and Dovid Melech with Bashev is the other. One teaches tshuva for the tzibur, and one teaches tzibur for the yachid. What does it mean that weren't roy for? So the naive reader thinks because Baruch Hu made them do averos, and that's why and then they had to do tshuva, and people could learn. But that's not true, because of course Baruch Hu made them do it. Then there's no tshuva. You only do tshuva for things you did b'mezid or b'shoki, not things that were onus, not something you had to do. So Dessler says, Klal Yisrael at Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah, and Dovid Melech in his position had outgrown the Yetzer Hara for these types of averos. So it shouldn't have been attractive to them, because Baruch Hu restored the Yetzer Hara for these types of averos so that they would be able to make a free will decision about it, not just coast on habit, the fact that they had already conquered this. But of course, the decisions they made were free will. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to teach the idea of tshuva. So it's not always that when the person becomes greater, his Yetzer Hara becomes greater in the same areas in which he conquered it before. They say about the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and the Maggid HaMizrich, his disciple, each one, when they were on their deathbeds, were saying the Pasuk Al Devei Regel Gava, don't give me over to Gaiva. They each lived such magnificent lives, such extraordinarily great lives in Avodas Hashem and Kedusha and Yira and Ava and mitzvos and learning. The last stand of the Yetzer Hara is, you did a good life. You did a good job, didn't you? You really were great, weren't you? Yeah, you really accomplished a lot, didn't you? To take it in for Gaiva and to crush it, the whole thing. To make it his achievement, rather than feeling it's the Kodesh Baruch Hu's hashgacha. So at the last moment, this is what the Satan was trying to do, to deprive them of the value of their accomplishment. It was gaiva. So it's going to vary in subject, and it is possible to get to a point where the Yetzer Hara doesn't function anymore. Now I'm going to play on prejudices. You may have heard this in the name of the Baal Tanya, because in the Tanya he says that a tzaddik is someone for whom there's no struggle because there's no Yetzer Hara, and a Beinoni is someone who always does everything right but struggles, and a Rasha is someone who sometimes does things that are wrong. Now, not everybody uses the terms that way. These terms have lots of different definitions. That's what he says. But as a matter of fact, the Meshech Chochmah, in his Akdama to Sefer Shmos, introduction to the book of Exodus, says that Moshe Rabbeinu reached that level, that he lost Bechira, lost his free will. And the Meshech Chochmah says, you think that if he loses his free will, since the Kodesh Baruch Hu created us to make free decisions, he lost the value of his life? No, because he used his free will to overcome his free will. That's the greatest achievement that a person can achieve. And he quotes it for the Rambam. He says, the Rambam says it explicitly, because I think it's Perek Zayin, the Yisodi HaTorah, where he talks about his Nevuah. He says twice that Moshe Rabbeinu was equivalent to a Malach. Twice in the same halacha. So, that's the Meshech Chochmah. And that idea is found in the Mesilas Yesharim, because in the last chapter of the Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal is talking there about the difference between Tahara and Kedusha. Tahara means purity, Kedusha means holiness. Tahara, he says, is taking from this world the absolute minimum, especially in terms of pleasure, because the pleasure of this world can pull one down. It can make a person lose his grip on Ruchnius. So a person who's the quality of Tahara is taking as little from this world as possible. That's next to the top, not the top. Top is Kedusha. What's the relationship of Kedusha to Gashmias? Well, he says, consider the Mizbeach, the Mizbach and the Choshes, right, where the Korbanos were burned. By the way, the Mizbach and the Choshes is Kodesh Kadashim. Not Kodesh, it's Kodesh Kadashim. Like the Aron, like the menorah, like the Shulchan, even though it's standing in the Azara. What went into the Mizbach and the Choshes? The fattest meat, and the richest wine, and the purest oil, and the finest flour, and it was all consumed. It's called Achilas HaMizbeach. The Mizbeach eats it up. That's submerged in Gashmius, because the problem is not the solution is not to divorce yourself from Gashmius. The problem is to divorce yourself from your being Gashmi. But if you're Ruchni and you're using the Gashmi for the sake of Ruchnius, then you don't have to hold yourself back that way. You don't have to minimize your interaction with it. And he said, a human being can be that way also. And he says, a human being can be a malach in this world. Very same words the Rambam uses, and the very same words that the Meshech Chochmah says means that you can come to a point where you either weaken free will, or come to the point where you have no free will. So if you have prejudices against the Baal Tanya, I understand there still are in some places prejudices that way. I hope they wouldn't carry over to the Meshech Chochmah and to the Mesilas Yesharim also, and Moshe Rabbeinu and the Rambam also, to resist the idea. So there is the idea of climbing beyond that altogether. Yeah.
How do you take your emunah bitachon to the next level?
Well, I don't know what level we're on, so I don't know what will be the next level. I've just happened to learn to share bitachon now in the Chos Lavos, which is a fascinating study. But I don't know if I can remember all 10 exactly. But he says at the end of the Sefer, that at the end of the chapter, Shar bitachon, that there are 10 levels of bitachon in terms of human development. So first is the baby is nursing from his mother's breast. So he's trusting the milk coming from her breast. Then he comes to see his mother as a person. So because she takes care of him. so he trusts her. Then he trusts his father, because he sees that his mother is dependent on his father, his mother honors his father, and so the father must be more powerful, must have more to give and more to rely on. Then he trusts other people, because other people provide him with things that he needs and are important to him. Then he develops some skills, some abilities, some resources, and he trusts himself. I can do this, I can handle this, I can make this, I can manage that. Then he comes to realize that there are things which he can't manage and other people can't manage, like the weather, like health, like war and peace. And he thinks, well, okay, so Rebbe Shalom is running the world. So then he comes to trust the Kadosh Baruch Hu for the things that are out of his control, they're beyond his control. Rav Desta makes fun of this, where he says, some people's attitude towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu is, listen, I have it all planned, I have everything organized, everything's under my control, just don't spoil it, okay? Just leave it to me. I'll handle it. Just don't make a flood. Don't make an electric storm. Just leave it alone, and I'll take care of it. Says, relying on Kodesh Baruch Hu to stay out of the way. Then he says, a higher level of trust is that I see that all of my abilities and all of my creativity and the outcome is all in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands. So I'm trusting him to make my efforts successful. Then, if I'm not mistaken, there's another level where I need to accomplish something. There might be various ways to do it. Some are harder, some are easier, some are dangerous. And I trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu to find for me the best way for me to do it, because different types of ways will be different for me in different ways. Then there's levels 9 and 10. Level 9 is where I say, I trust the Kodesh Baruch Hu to decide for me what's good for me in this world. Up to now, I have what I need, I have what I want, I have what I'm doing, I have my plans, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu comes into the plans one way or another. But now I say, who says I have plans? Who says that I know what I should be planning for, what direction I should be going in? And here he says, I make my best judgment as possible, but whatever the outcome is, whatever the outcome that the Hashgacha Pratis delivers to me, that I rejoice in, because that's what he wants from me. I give up I give over my trust in deciding what's good for me. That's a much bigger step. Up until there, I have my own plans, and I'm hoping that he'll help me and he'll provide it for me. And the 10th level is to reflect on the fact that all of this world is transient and superficial and limited by Gashmias, Keneged Olam Haba, and to say, not that I trust him to provide for me the best position in this world, but I'm not interested in this world. That's not my focus. I know that the only place where I will really fully exist in an Olam Haba, and in the meantime, the only thing that they could possibly have that's relevant in this world is Vekas and the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And by the way, he talks about his bodhidus, like the rest of us did, going out, being alone, and meditating on the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and that's 900 years ago. So the rest of us didn't invent anything. They took it from good sources. So he says you treasure those moments when you're alone and when you can think about a Kodesh Baruch Hu and relate to a Kodesh Baruch Hu and be close to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And you know who else says this? The Heilige Rambam. Because he says in the Moreh Nevuchim, towards the end, he talks about the great tzaddik and so forth and so on. He says, and those precious moments of the day. When are the precious moments of the day? When you're on your bed at night, just before you fall asleep, because there's nothing to do but think about a Kodesh Baruch Hu. During the day, they plans, and I'm going to meet him, I'm going to speak to him, and I've got to go there, and I've got to make this investment. I have to learn that Gemara. And those precious moments. You remember the Rambam talking that way? People don't know who the Rambam is. Right? This precious when now just I'm alone with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So that the 10th level is to give over to Kodesh Baruch Hu the whole of everything. All I want is to be together with you. That's the 10th level of bitachon. So these are levels of bitachon. You can look at it there. It's the last page of the Shab.
You talk about plans, and saying that they're like, I'll let, like, I don't know if I have plans, or like you hope that God takes you to wherever you're supposed to go. But like, what if your plans don't include you being the utmost servant to God, like being religious, in other words to say? What if someone's like plans interfere in their religion?
Okay, but I mean, you were talking about levels of bitachon.
No,
I mean,
you're right. I'm going off the.
oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you answered my question.
Well, now it sort of goes back to what he asked: how are you dealing with a person for whom the basic concepts are foreign? And I said before, it's going to vary from person to person, but you might ask the person, well, you have plans. What are you going for? What are you aiming for? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? And when he tells you, you could ask him, why are you going for those goals? What do you think will be the result of achieving those goals? Will you be satisfied? Will you be inspired? Will you be the kind of person that you could be? Will it realize all of the valuable abilities that you have? What is it about these goals that draws you? And did you think of possibly other goals? Did you ever meet or read people with different goals? Take that into account. I'll be very careful with the vocabulary here. In taking, in becoming attached to a goal. Sometimes a person is attached to a goal because he doesn't know any alternatives. In the First World War, there was a popular song in America, how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? Paris is Paris. That means the guy who's a farmer in Iowa, where in every direction for 500 miles there's corn, and he's a soldier in the army, he conquers Europe and he goes to Paris. He's not going to be a corn farmer in Iowa. That's not going to happen. But if he had never gone to Europe, he could have been happy as a corn farmer. He could have been happy because that was his horizon. Now that he's seen more of the world, he's not going to be satisfied with that anymore. You say, these are the goals that you're working for. Maybe the goals are short-sighted. Maybe you're capable of something much more. After all, when you were 6, you wanted to be a baseball star, right? And when you're 12, you wanted to be a United States Senator. And when you were 15, you wanted to win the Nobel Prize in gymnastics. And now you're 23, and you don't want to do any of those things anymore. Your goals change. With your life experience, with your understanding, your goals change. Well, have they stopped changing? You're 23. A finished product, right? I only hope I don't deteriorate from here on out to 120. Probably not. Well, maybe you should think ahead and think in terms of other experiences that might broaden your horizons. When I first went to South Africa, I was in high school in Cape Town. This was about 102 years ago. And a student said to me, Rabbi, I know what you're going to do. You're going to promise me heaven. I have the mountain, Table Mountain, comes down to the sea. I have the sea. I have the beach. I have heaven right here. I was told that in Cape Town in the summer, the only question is when to turn over. Because you're on the beach, you're getting a suntan. When should you turn over and tan the other side of your body? That's all. That's all there is. There's nothing else. It's when to turn over, right? So at that time, I was young and ignorant, and I didn't have an answer for him. But afterwards, when I thought about it, I thought to myself, you think you have heaven here because you haven't seen the alternatives. I challenge you. Come to Jerusalem for 3 months and then see whether you'll be satisfied with when to turn over. I'll show you something which will expand your horizons. And if the clever critic says, but you don't do that for your children, Rabbi, do you? You don't let them travel the world and see alternatives so they can make a better decision? There's an answer to that. It's not such a clever question. You're advertising happiness and pleasure. You say you already have happiness and pleasure here, and therefore you're not considering anything else. I say, via your search for happiness and pleasure, there are other alternatives that might be better for you. But I'm not living for happiness and pleasure. I'm living for truth. I'm not willing to live a life of a lie to get more happiness and pleasure. So I'm not sending my kids around the world because I have the truth right here. But you, in terms of where you're standing, you should see more of the world. So this is just something to think about.
How much apikosis is necessary if somebody is in Kiruv and
how much apikosis is necessary?
No.
Again, it depends very, very much on the individual. My Rebbe Zatzal was very smart. If you talk to him about something, he could understand it and he could make incisive, logical comments. But I'm not aware that he read any apikosis straight out. No, I'm not unaware of that. And I spent a lot of time reading apikosis because that's something that I had to do for my contribution. But whenever you talk to him about something scientific or philosophical, when I was becoming frum, one of the people close to him had a PhD in physics. Another one was a mathematician working for the government doing military mathematics. Another one was a professor of sociology. I mean, these were the people who were close to him. He had really first-class secular intellectuals who were close to him because he was very smart. When you said something to him, he could pick up on the theme of it, pick up on the basic ideas, and he would always have something to contribute to what you were talking about. So, I think for some people it can be useful. I mean, my Rabbi steered me into becoming a professor of philosophy, so of course I had to read a lot of apikosis for that. And he didn't steer everybody to do things like that. He had different trajectory for each person. So I don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all type of approach here. It depends upon what you're good at, what you're interested in, what's natural for you, and it'll vary from person to person. Yeah.
I've noticed in the very ultra-Orthodox community, people have very large families, and they get married very young. What's the idea around it? What's it based on?
The idea of having very large families and getting married young. Well, having large families, there's a mitzvah, and you may have heard that the mitzvah is to have at least one boy and one girl, but that's the Eraisa. The Rabbanan, based on a pasuk in Mishlei, Erev al Tanach Yadecha, even when you're older, don't hold your hand back and then you have children. There are exceptions. There are reasons why one can prevent pregnancy, but the norm is to have as many children as the Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you. Getting married young.
And when's the right time to get married?
Well, that's going to vary from person to person, from community to community, and from circumstance to circumstance. After the Second World War, people got married in their 30s and 40s because it was a situation of desperation. We lived in Baltimore for 10 years, and I was very close to Amram Tal, was a Chassid Rabbi there. None of his girls went to high school graduation because instead of going to high school graduation, he gave them a wedding. And they were in Sheva Brachas, so they didn't go to high school graduation. And he said like this: you want to know that the boy and the girl are good for one another, that they relate to one another. Let's say they're both 23. No, they're 23. They have to get to know one another. They have to interact with one another. They have to test out each other's ideas and feelings and so forth and so on, to see whether they're really matim with one another. But if they get married when they're 18, they aren't yet ready-made. They aren't yet fully made. And they grow up together. They grow into one another because they're growing up together. So instead of waiting till 23 and having an extended investigation to see whether marry them at 18, in which case they'll be that way because they're going to grow together. They have this. So that's one of the svaras that's behind it. You know very well that in our circles, a girl is ready to be a mother when she's 12, because since she's 8, she's been taking care of younger siblings or younger cousins and so on, and they're competent and they love the children, and they look up to their mothers, and they learn how to take care of a house. And today they learn to work because they take part in supporting the family. All those things, you don't have to be 35 in order to be able to do those things. In fact, one of the problems in today's shidduchim is that the girls are much more mature than the boys are. They're naturally more mature. That's why they become adults at 12 and the boys become adults at 13. And that carries up through those years. And therefore, for her to marry someone she can respect, she has to marry somebody who's older than she. So you get a 20-year-old girl who wants to marry a 23-year-old boy. Now, if your population is increasing, as it has been for the last 100 years, so each year, the number of people of that age is bigger. So now, he's 23 and she's 20. Well, there are more 20-year-olds than there are 23-year-olds. Now you got the 23-year-old boys marrying the 20-year-old girls. But there are more 20-year-old girls than there are 23-year-old boys. Some girls don't get married. That creates part of the shidduch crisis. Part of the shidduch crisis is just mathematical. And that's why, I know this isn't true in Baltimore, maybe true in other cities as well, they have stipends where a girl will marry a younger boy, or a boy will marry an older girl. Because then you equalize the populations. And that way you can find spouses. It's the women who suffer from this more than men. There are always more women than men, partly because men kill each other off in foolish pursuits like war and motorcycle racing and bungee jumping and drugs and drunken bouts and so forth and so on. So that is always going to be a problem with there being more women than men, which is the secular answer to the complaint. You guys believe in polygamy, that a man can have more than one wife? And the answer to that is, you believe that the law should condemn some women never to be married? Why should the law do that? Where's the kindness in that? Where's the liberalism in that? Everyone's shooting his own way. She wants to be number 2 wife, because that's better than living alone. And you say you can't do that? Where are you coming from? So that's part of the idea. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. Oh, should we go? If there are no more questions, in 5 minutes I got to go upstairs anyway.
If there's someone that, like I said, he wants to listen about Yiddishkeit, and I want to give him a mitzvah to do.
You see, that will vary very much with the person. I remember someone, I forget who told me this many, many years ago. Suppose he says, I'm thinking about mitzvahs and I have 2 choices. One is Shabbos and one is brachos. Which one should I do? I say, boy, that's a no-brainer. Shabbos? Shabbos is one of the Aseres HaDibros. And Shabbos is, if a person violated it with Eidim and Asra, it would be killed for it. And it's mentioned 30 times in the Torah. And brachos, except for Ben Shigat Rabbanan. Of course you should keep Shabbos. No, that may be the wrong choice. Maybe he's not ready for it. What kind of challenges it will be? What will happen with him, with his family, if he keeps Shabbos? Brachos he can make under his breath. Nobody has to know that he's doing it. Right? Yarmulke or tzitzis? Well, tzitzis you can wear under your shirt, so nobody has to know. Okay, you go to the gym, so you change in the bathroom. That sort of thing. But yarmulke, keeping your head covered the whole time, that's a public identification. That might be very hard for him. So it's going to depend upon the individual. About, I guess it's maybe 50 years ago, there was a girl who became religious somehow, 14-year-old girl, and she told her parents she wants to keep Shabbos, and they said, you will not keep Shabbos in this house. Not we won't do it for you. You will not keep Shabbos. So she wrote to one of the poskim. I'm not at liberty to mention his name, but he's a well-known name. What to do? And you know very well, in halacha, parents can't tell you to violate any mitzvah, certainly not Shabbos. He said, don't keep Shabbos. Because you set up a war between a 14-year-old girl and her parents, it's very likely she's going to lose the war and she's not going to be from at all. I saw it when I was undergraduate. We had a group of students who were growing in Yiddishkeit together. We had one boy there, and his parents found out what he was doing, and they took him out of school for a year and sent him to a psychiatrist, and he came back and he was not from. They broke him. They broke him. It can be done. It can happen. So he said, wait until you're independent enough to do it on your own without a war with your parents. You have to be a Gottleib Torah to say something like that. I'm not telling you what to do or what to tell other people, but it's very, very tricky. What mitzvah a person should do? The first mitzvah, if he's an intellectual type, study Torah. And give him something that he's interested in. If he likes logic, it's logic. If he likes stories, it's stories. Likes history, it's history. If he likes text, there's a lot of text that he could learn. Something that will engage him and make him feel that he's doing something that can contributing something for him. I'll give you one yesod here, and then I'm going to quit because I have to give a share upstairs. I saw this in a sefer, Dafka Kabbalah sefer. I didn't write it down, so I don't remember where it was. Everybody who gets started is getting started because he's looking for some kind of adventure. He's looking for some kind of activity, environment in which he can be or do something that he otherwise can't be or do. It's totally self-centered. What will this do for me? That's fine. That's fine. That's right. That's the way he should start. The great graduation is into avoda. Avoda means this is bigger than me. And I could only be anything if I contribute to it. Not it should contribute to me, to my pride. What I was saying before about bitachon and chavos. Not that I have my plans and this should help me with my plans. The only plan that's relevant to me, because this is infinitely bigger than me, is to be for it what it wants. There's nothing else for me. That's a great graduation, but you don't start off with that. Indeed, you start off with children that way. The Rabbi has for chinuch, when you start to telling the child, learn this pasuk, I'll give you candy, I'll give you nuts. After that, I'll give you a toy. After that, I'll give you a piece of clothing. After that, I'll give you a trip. After that, you promise him honor. They'll call you Rabbi. They'll come to you with shilas. You'll be very honored and respected. Make important decisions. All of this is enuchi. It's selfish. And the Rambam is clear. He says you're degrading the Torah because you're making the Torah into a kli by which he can get for himself something that he wants for himself. But that's how you start. You start with that kind of motivation. That's what an immature mind is. An immature mind starts that way. Eventually, it grows to the point where it understands this is bigger than I am. So I'm not doing it to get something for me. I can only be something for it. But not the other way around. Okay.